this one is the Mildred. Okay, here we go. This one I was trying to win an award with, so I took my extreme time on it. But this is the Mildred, and this boat here ran up and down the Indian River in the 1940s, 50s, and around there. And I remember it, and well, getting back to, my hulls are made out of cedar and everything else is pine. And I learned that I could make little lights that look just like port and starboard. Okay, hope I got them on the right way. And then regular lights, just a regular light there. My actual railings are made out of 1-inch, they're called escutcheon pins, and they're like you might find as you put your pictures up on the wall, only they're a little bit smaller. But these are the bigger ones. But they do make a good example of a railing. Now, what I'm particularly proud of is I had an awful time trying to make awnings for boats. And I literally spent years trying to maybe put glue on fabric, and that makes a bumpy veranda or whatever. And what I learned was that I was better with wood. So if you can see the bottom here, this is made out of veneer. Okay, it's thin wood as you can get. And then I painted it green, and then I glued hunter twill on it. And you had to be kind of careful when you're gluing anything like that, because if you put too much glue on it, it makes gooey stuff, and it really doesn't do well. The other interesting thing is the propellers are kind of interesting, and they're made out of pennies. Not Canadian pennies, because you can't do that in Canada, but they're American pennies. And they're very bright, and American pennies are very brittle, and they will, once you cut the 4 parts, the 4 blades out, and then twist it round with 2 sets of pliers, they do look very much like a propeller, and it's about right for the, the size of the boat and everything too. So, and my rudders tend to move. I've been commissioned to make the Wanda. And the Wanda is a very interesting ship made in 1915 by Polson down in Toronto. And it was a very fast boat made for the Eaton family. And the engine was very powerful, and the boat top heavy, if you will, so that it bounced around a lot. Anyway, now having seen the Mildred a bit here, the Mildred's stern was pretty much normal to what most boats were of that size. But this one here had what they call a cruiser stern. In other words, it was like the huge man of war that were being created in Europe. And I always wondered, how much of an actual elongation you would put in the stern itself. So I practiced first with this one here, and it turned out reasonably okay. And then I started working with this one. I thought I'd really try to get something that's a little longer. So I cut this one, and you can see that it's got a much bigger cruiser stern, if you will. But it does look very graceful along with the rest of the ship itself. This one here, I had some lessons today, and I'm going to try cutting along this line here, which may be less stern than this one. That one's rather stern, if you will. This one here, not quite the angle that I wanted, but this one may do it. So we'll try working that out tomorrow. So I work with the bandsaw getting it this way, and then I'm going to work with Dremel tools and with my palm sander, and we'll get it rounded off the way that this one looks, but not as stern. And then the other parts I put onto that, the major part where people would be sitting down below, and then the wheelhouse, and then I'll be adding all the other parts to this one here. So it's like a jigsaw puzzle, putting it together. The hulls are made of cedar, okay? And if you notice that there's no knots in the line there, all wood is not perfect, and this one here has got a little bit of imperfection there. So what happens is I will be sealing this up using a product, and it seals all the resins and the knots into the wood. And then I use 2 or 3 layers of good white paint on top of that, so that I get a very good finish, and none of these resins will leach out at all. So if you notice that all of my wood, because I'll be staining it too, this upper part is made out of pine, and that will have to be stained, and it will try and match the boat itself. It will be sort of a red mahogany, if you will. Okay, this box here is a Segwun, and it's my bestseller, in that most people love the Segwun and have got fond memories of it, you know, in their childhood, or maybe they had their first drink on it, or got married on it, or other wonderful things. Nowadays, you have the grandkids come running down the dock with bells and things, and they ring the bells, and the captain just hoots the horn, and away they go, and it's a loving thing. Anyway, this is a Segwun. There it is here. And I'll put that around. There it is. It's made the same way as the other boats. This is cedar, pine, and so on. The windows, I try and get those. Those are metal pieces. And the doors are made out of strips of wood. And Mar Connectors makes the actual lights look pretty good. And the upholstery tack looks just like a bell, and it's brass. The light. Okay, 45 hours, and that's it. Okay.
What's the most difficult part of it to do?
Not losing my fingers on cutting the wood and sanding it down. Sanding is a particularly dangerous thing because it's on a 12-inch sanding disc, and sometimes those flap off. And when they do, they're going at 10,000 RPMs. And boy, I've had one go over my house, a 2-story house in Etobicoke, and end down the front driveway. I wondered where it went to. It made it right like a frisbee over the top.
So how long have you been making these?
Since 97. I retired in 97, and I've been doing this ever since because I knew I'd be driving my wife nuts if I hadn't done something. And she loves to quilt, and I love to make boats, so she does her thing, and I do mine. Again, the back, see the props? Mm-hmm. Don't they look real? I'm going to show you one last thing that's totally amazing, because when I was starting to do this, it was an inventing type of thing. But if you take a look at this thing at the end of my finger, most people can't guess what that is.
Well, it's a whistle.
Nope, it is a whistle, and that's what it's supposed to look like, but that is light bright. And it's cut up and painted, and it looks just like a whistle, doesn't it? This is the Sagamo. It's the most important, next to the Segwun, I guess, of all the Muskoka boats. This boat here was about 152 feet long and about 29 feet wide. And believe it or not, the locks here in Port Carling are made for this boat. It's only about 6 more feet in the length and a few feet on each side. So this boat was very important because it went from Gravenhurst up to Natural Park, through the 3 major lakes and into the Little Lake Joe. And then it would go to Natural Park, and then it would go back to Gravenhurst. Now, the interesting thing about this one here is it met all the other boats along the way. They had a schedule, so it met the Segwun in Beaumaris, and it met the Cherokee near Bala, and so on. So that it was the one boat that sort of was a symbol for the rest of them. And Sagamo, like a lot of the boats up here, tended to be named Ojibwe words. So the Sagamo means big chief, and it certainly was the big chief. Segwun meant springtime, and Wyoming meant water lily, and so on. It just goes on and on. And this one here is my finest boat, I'd say, because it's bigger, and it's 3 layers. So it's got 2 layers on top of the hull layer here. And it has a lot of detail on it that maybe the other ones don't have. It has a lot of funnels. There was a lot of exhaust going down into the boilers and to where the engines happened to be. And it had 4 lifeboats during its lifetime. It started off in about 1929, and unfortunately it burned. And they built it again. They built it with 3 layers on it. And eventually, the boat itself, the lifeboats were down here, and then they moved their way up to the next level until this is the final version of the Sagamo. The other interesting thing is this: the beast on the top here, the Phoenix. It was carved by Commodore Bailey, who was part of the fleet back in the early days, and he loved to carve, and so he carved the Phoenix, meaning when this thing actually burned, this is now the revival of the boat, and so that is very significant that it's the Phoenix. He also did the pike on the Canosa, which means pike in Ojibwe. So this one here was the major boat, and it ran from 1922 right the way to 58, and it's gone 1,000,000 miles or more up through the lakes.